Hello, 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 and welcome. I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about some of the red flags. I've had a lot of people ask me if um, how would they know that they're in an abusive church or being abused by church leaders, what that looks like, if I could give some examples with everything that's going on in the world today. There's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of stress and a lot of the same symptoms that we experience when we are in an abusive church setting. Those are a lot of the same symptoms that we're feeling just because of everything, the uncertainty of everything that is going on in the world right now. It just seems like there's so much chaos. So I wanted to hop on and just spend a few minutes covering three of my top red flags. And these are things that I have personally experienced. And I've also worked with people that have experienced these as well. My number one, and this is a huge, this is like the biggest one across the board, whether it's a cult environment, an actual cult, an abusive church, group setting. The biggest tactic that they use is getting you to not trust your intuition, your gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. And there were many, many times when I would just not feel like going to church, or I felt like I shouldn't go. And what I was told was that that was just the enemy or my rebellion keeping me from going to church. The other thing that I was told was that it was because God had something special for me there. And so there was some kind of resistance, something trying to keep me from what God had for me, whether it was a healing or some kind of change within me. Deliverance was another big word that was talked about. So, not getting to that place of not being able to trust your gut, um, being in there and hearing those things, and you hear that over and over again, and you might say, well, if it was just like a one-time thing, then you could just say, yeah, I don't believe that or not. But when you're hearing that over and over, and you're also hearing other things as well, the other red flags that I'll talk about, and there are several. These are just the top three most common. And you put that together with a lot of other things going on, and you begin to not trust yourself. And you feel like you can't make decisions. Like, I felt like I wasn't capable of being able to decide whether or not I should continue in this church, because I wasn't trusting that I either heard from God myself. I wasn't trusting that I was smart enough or capable enough to make those kind of decisions, that I needed um, somebody else within that church to confirm what I was feeling or to bring clarity to that. That is also a red flag. If they begin to tell you, oh, you've made the right decision in coming and talking with me or us, depending on, whether you're meeting with the elders or your pastor or, whoever is in leadership or in authority, in accountability, like an accountability person for you within that church. When you begin to not trust your decision making because you felt like there was something not right about that church or not right about going that particular time, and you didn't want to, but then you talked about it Or a lot of times I would just hear it from the pulpit. Like, yeah, if you didn't want to come to church today, or things were trying to keep you, that's just, the powers of hell or the enemy trying to get you here. And you just have to press through because, you know, you're supposed to be here. And if you're here, it's because God has called you to be here. Well, that isn't necessarily true. You're there because either somebody referred you to them, you maybe saw the pastor speak, or you have friends that go there. There are various reasons that you go, and you go to check it out. And then they capture you with this, yeah, if you're here, it's not a mistake. God brought you here. And yeah, that can be true. I believe that. However, if your gut is telling you that something's not right, that maybe you shouldn't go, or you just know in your knower, like something is kind of off, and you're like, well, I'll go check it out again. Maybe somebody's having an off day. That is a normal response to continue and allow someone to tell you, yeah, you just press through and just come because God has something for you, even though everything in your body, or maybe it's just a subtle part of your body. Maybe it's even common sense. Maybe they just said something, or the people were rude, or something just didn't set right with you. And you're like, wow, that's not very loving. That's not very community oriented or family oriented. Maybe it could just be like, I don't think these are my people. And that's okay, right? That is okay, because God's given us free will and he wants us to be happy. He doesn't want us to be miserable in a church or be abused. That's just, that's not who God is. But that seems to be people behind the pulpit and in leadership seem to be just creating this thing, like that God doesn't care how you're feeling. If you feel like you shouldn't be here, then really you should be here. So what does that create? That creates just mass confusion. It kind of, it tells you that your thoughts and your feelings are not valid. It creates this thing in you to where you think, am I crazy? Is it me? No, you're not crazy. It's just something's not right, right? It's not the right place for you, but you're hearing the complete opposite, and you're going because you desire a relationship with God. You want to find people, you want to find your tribe of people that you connect with, your church family, fellowship. You want to make new friends. You want to feel like you belong. And then the red flags start, right? And so when you hear that, and you hear it time and time again, and your body, your mind, your soul is your mind, your will, right? And your emotions. And then you have your body, and then you have your spirit. So you have this very complex being, and it's capable of telling you when something isn't right. Symptoms in your body, like physical symptoms, are just your body telling you something needs to be addressed. Something isn't right. An emotion is your body telling you something isn't right. There needs to be attention placed on this, okay, so that we can have balance, so that we can be in the right place. We can be where we're supposed to be. We can be healthy and happy, however you want to label that. Our body always wants to bring balance and health. Our body's made to do that. So if you're going into a church setting and you don't want to, you don't feel right, and yet they're telling you that what you're feeling is wrong, it creates this thing in you to where you're not trusting yourself. You're not trusting your mind. You're not trusting your common sense. You're not trusting your thinking capabilities. You're not trusting that you hear from God, if that's what something that you believe. I believe we hear from God. You're not trusting your physical body. And, you can have physical symptoms. Like you can just get in there and feel anxious, or get in there and just have like a weird feeling in your gut. You can wake up in the morning and just be like, yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to go. And that's okay. So that is my that's my top red flag. And in working with people, my own experience, because then it seems like, if you can't trust yourself and trust that God's speaking to you, and you need approval, you seek approval, or you need somebody to bring confirmation, which is something that, we hear about in the church entity as well. God will give you confirmation, and God gave us common sense. So, and if you don't feel like you can trust your decision making, then you begin to go to these people who are creating this. And I'm not saying they're waking up every day and saying, yeah, I'm going to go and today I'm going to create this, chaos and this like, um, just crazy making scenario, because oftentimes these pastors are just teaching or preaching on what they were taught. Okay, because they need people in their church because they have bills to pay. That's a whole other topic of discussion that I will do videos on. I will talk to you about that. But that's like a whole other part of it. And so there's a covert narcissist, and then there's different types of abusers, and we're not going to get into that today. But abuse is abuse, and a red flag is a red flag. And if you're being taught to not trust what you know in your knower, or what your body, what your mind, what common sense says, then something is not right. A healthy church environment and a healthy set of leaders, a healthy set of um, friends that you fellowship with they'll push you. I guess the common phrase is like, they'll, push you closer to God. Well, what that means is they will help you. Well, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What do you think you should do? What's God saying to you about it? That is being healthy. Now, if you're just having a complete block in that area and it's, a big decision, then hey, sign up for a session with a life coach, or, a spiritual coach, or somebody who is actually qualified, and sit down and have a session with them and help you. They'll help you break through that block, because you are capable. God gave us common sense. God gave us all of this, this gut feeling and discernment, whatever you want to call it. He put that within us, and we are capable of hearing from him. So when somebody tries to take that away from you on any level, that is not okay. That is a huge red flag. And I would turn and walk the other way, because I've been through that. I've time and time again. And I believed that for so many years, because that's just what I was taught. And bringing me to the next red flag, which the three I'm going to talk about today, they all sort of flow together. And once people are aware of this, it's amazing, like how clearly they see it, like how clear it really becomes to them. Because when you're in the midst of a storm, it's hard for you to see the sunshine, right? That's just on the other side. It's hard for you to get clear. And because a lot of it is, you have stress hormones being released. There's a whole lot of things that happen when you're in an abusive situation that can cause blocks, that can cause you to not see clearly or to feel clearly if you're a sensitive person. So the next red flag is that they believe, the leadership, the elders, the accountability partners, small group leaders, that whole, they believe and they teach that they hear God clearer and better for you than you do for yourself. And I come from a charismatic church background, and so they, still do prophetic words, and you have the accountability partners. You need to be accountable, because the word of God says submit one to another, and there are several other, go to the elders. There are several scriptural references that they use, mostly out of context, but again, different discussion. So once the confusion is set in, because you're questioning your ability to make decisions, or to know, or to discern, to use common sense, then you naturally, they teach in the church, like, seek counsel. There's wise counsel, go to the elders, or come and talk to us if you have any questions, or anything going on. Come and get prayer from us, which I do believe in prayer. I do believe that we shouldn't just go to anybody for that you should be extremely choosy in who you allow to pray for you. Different video, we'll talk more about that another time. Anyway, so they teach that they can actually hear God for you. And they don't necessarily tell you that up front. It comes in the form of like, hey, God told me this about you, and you should do this. This is what I'm hearing God say for you. I've walked with God, and this is what he says. And no, even if it's just you going and asking for advice, saying, what, I'm just not sure if I really belong here. Well, God brought you here. And I know God has you here for a reason. It's just subtleties like that. God you wouldn't have come through the front door unless you're supposed to be here. The heart is wicked, and we all have sin, and that's just the enemy. And so but I'm hearing God say this for you. And so they actually create, again, an atmosphere of you needing them, that they know God better than you, that they know what is best for you more so than you do. And this can, even if you are married, I've seen couples be torn apart, and it creates great division within married couples. This is actually, again, something that's happened to me. And I've had many friends get divorced because of this sort of thing that has gone on in these abusive churches. And so this just builds upon the first red flag. So what does a healthy environment, what does that look like? Well, again, it's very simple. You go to somebody for advice, or they're, talking up front in the pulpit, or they're teaching in a class, and a healthy thing would be, what is God saying to you? What do you believe to be true? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? If you're having a block, seek counsel. Okay, it could be, again, like if it's a major, something big, then hire a coach or a counselor. Okay, just because people are in leadership, they're a pastor, does not mean they're qualified to counsel or coach you. Just because they're sitting on a board, or they have the title an elder, does not mean that they are advanced spiritually more so than you, that they hear God clearer. That's not true. Or that they somehow have these magical qualifications to make decisions for you. That's not how it works, right? You are capable. And if that is the impression that they're giving, that you need to go to them for permission or for advice or for teaching, and even some of them will go to the extreme as to not want you to seek outside. If you bring up like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about seeing a counselor or a coach or be a part of this group, and they frown on it and go, oh, do you think that's really necessary? Or they could just blatantly say, no, you don't need to go outside. You can stay here. We can take care of this. That is the red flag. Healthy version is, again, what is God speaking to you? What do you believe to be true? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And if you're still not sure, then hey, have you thought about getting a session with a coach, or maybe talking to a counselor, maybe finding someone? Do you know of somebody who has already been through this that could possibly help you or point you in the right direction? Um, they will, a healthy version is they will help you to find the answer, the solution yourself, and equip you, give you ideas as to where you can find that information or that answer. Or they will encourage you, like, you are capable, like just what I'm doing here today, like you are just as equipped, just as smart, just as advanced spiritually. You have everything within you that you need, right? So they're not any different. But if they try and get you to believe that, I mean, yeah, I grew up, in the church where we still had like spiritual parents. They had known God a lot longer than we had. And, yes, you would seek wisdom from them. But you know what? Every single one would say, what's God saying to you? You are okay right where you're at. Just be patient. The answer will come. Mm-hmm. You are capable. God loves you. God will speak to you. Everything will fall into place. It wasn't go and let so-and-so tell you what to do because they hear from God better than you. That is not true. Okay, so bringing me on to the next one. And again, these three are like my top 3 red flags because they can be very, very subtle. And a lot of times, this is like a very slow, subtle process that happens. Because at first, you're excited, you're looking for that community, you're looking for that family. You want to fit in. You want to be a part. You want to please God. You want to do something for God. You want to help people. You want to get healed and be happy, whether it's physical healing or emotional healing. Like you go because you want something good and to be accepted and validated and loved. And so you're going for all the right reasons. And so it can, be very subtle, and it can be a process. And then suddenly, you're just not, you're either like so confused or you're just irritated. There's a ton of responses going on with you emotionally. So there is that like sort of that newbie high, you're just like on top of the world feeling. And so, yeah, they can say things like this to you and you're just like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, there's a part of me that's not great. Yeah, I've had sin. Yeah, I've done some horrible things. The whole like your heart is evil, which that is not true, by the way. That is not true. Don't believe that at all. But different video. So, well, I have a lot of videos to do for you. Okay, so my third of the top 3 red flags is that if you go to a leader, your pastor, or somebody they connect you with, an elder, small group leader, somebody that is in the inner circle, for those of you that know what that is, or on staff, there's a lot of different words that they use for their leadership group or leadership team, prayer team. There's all of these different things going on in there. You go and you voice your concern. Like, I just don't feel like this is right. Um, maybe it's like, hey, so and so said something really mean to me and they're out of line, they're in leadership. I mean, it could be something big like that, or it could be something like, hey, I'm just not feeling good about this, whatever it is. And they tell you that either you're in rebellion, that you don't take direction well, that you're not submissive, um, that you have a bit of a controlling spirit. There's names, especially if you're a woman. Um, they tell you that there's something wrong with you. Oh, you just need healing, or, how long have you known the Lord? Well, yeah, you just haven't known him long enough. Um, so just, let it go. Nobody's perfect. They're just, working through some things. Basically, the gist of it is that there's something wrong with you. What you're feeling is not right on some level. And there's different, it can be very subtle, or they can just flat out tell you, look, you're in rebellion and you need to let this go. This is you. You need to get healed or delivered, or, you need to work through it. You need to learn to submit. You're not a team player. Or they excuse it. Oh, so and so is just going through something, and then they turn it into a gossip session and try and make you feel guilty for bringing something up. Hey, just because somebody is going through a hard time is not a license for them to be abusive. And if that's the case, then, if they're unable to keep things in check and lead properly, then maybe they need to take a break for a little bit and work through their things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So the third red flag is that they tell you either subtly, passive aggressively, or just outright that the problem is you. The problem is you. You're not hearing correctly. However it is, what you're feeling or what you're thinking is not valid. It's not right. Nobody's perfect. I've heard that one time and time again. Nobody's perfect. Well, I understand that. I don't expect people to be perfect. But if somebody is in leadership, or they're pastoring, or they're teaching people, or they're like, leading and influencing, if they're in a position to where they are influencing people on any level and they're being abusive, then I'm sorry, that's not okay. And I will voice my concern. Whether I'm right or wrong, I should be able to do that openly and freely and have someone say, yeah, I get it. I get where you're coming from. And we'll look into it, or, whatever. I'm not saying that there is going to be any change from it, but it should be, the healthy response should be, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Whatever it is, depending on what it is. And again, if you're voicing concern about, being there, or maybe they've asked you to do something that you don't feel right about doing, you don't feel that you're called to do it, or maybe you just don't want to, maybe you're just not in that place. And they tell you, that you're wrong, or there's something wrong with you, that's not okay. It should be, okay, I completely understand. If something changes, let us know. Is there something you feel like, you could be, do to help out, or what are you feeling that you are wanting to do or feeling called to do? And it could be nothing. Maybe maybe you work a full-time job and you have kids, you have a lifestyle, and you just don't feel that you can volunteer or give anything, that's okay. Hey, great. That is great. Um, Maybe in the future we'll revisit this. Glad you're here. You know that you should be validated. You should actually be thanked for bringing something to their attention. Again, it should be encouraging, validating, and pointing you if there's a direction or something or a question that you need to be guided into, then there should be that guidance, but it should not be discounted. It should not be. You shouldn't be told there's something wrong with you, because quite honestly, nobody is perfect, right? But you should be able to freely go and express your concern and be validated and be heard and be, I think it's great if somebody is going to have the courage to step up and say something. And especially if you see something that isn't right, then attention should be brought to that and change made. So those are my top 3 red flags. There are many. Again, I've experienced all of these, and unfortunately, and I've also worked with many, many people that have experienced them as well. And there are a lot of people that are dealing with CPTSD, and even some have PTSD. There's just a lot of traumatic responses happening because of the things that are going on in these church entities. And I'm not saying that all churches are bad, because I'm sure that there are some good ones out there. So I'm not like anti-establishment. I just know that I've been in several, and I know that there are just tens of thousands of people that are being traumatized and abused by leaders within the church, and that is not okay. So I love you. Go ahead and hit subscribe. I'm kind of new to this YouTube thing. I have done a lot on Facebook and on my website. So I guess here it's like subscribe, like, share with your friends if you know of anybody who could be experiencing this, or if you've experienced this, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And please, please, please pass it along, because we need to get the word out. And I just want people to have a great experience and just to have amazing lives. And we don't need to go through all of this nonsense and be abused. That's not okay. It is never, ever okay for that to happen, especially in the name of God. Sorry, I don't like that. So love you guys. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.